All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us through that break. This is the final segment of Wake Up Sierra Leone, and in the final segment this morning, as you know, Sierra Leone's Auditor General Taylor Pierce has been suspended indefinitely from a letter of the Office of the President, which among other things states that the Attorney General is to set up a tribunal to look into audit service Sierra Leone for professional performance or the lack thereof. Over the last 10 years, according to many, Lara Taylor Pierce has been consistent with her team, releasing hard-hitting audit reports about the handling of state resources by the government. So this morning, to discuss this issue, we have been joined by lawyer Francis Gabbidon, who's also a lecturer, Law Department, Frabe College, and Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, presidential spokesman. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Lawyer Gabbidon, would start off with you, looking at the legal aspect, because that conversation has emerged through some of the press releases and the conversation on social media. I noticed that one such people is Basita Michael, who says there is a process to be followed for the Auditor General to be put on suspension. Now let's get your interpretation. Was this the due process to be followed?
Yes, oh yes. I think this is the due process. The position of the Auditor General is similar to that of a judge of the Superior Courts. That is, they're in the same status and they follow the same process, Section 137 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone. And I think what the President has done is to fire the first shot, which is to suspend. That's the first, yes. So in fact, he has not done anything. From what I know, I don't think he's done anything apart from that. You have to suspend. Then after you suspend, then of course, the Law Officers Department will try to convene a tribunal of a chairman and two other officers. It's similar to what they do for judges. We had, some years ago, 3 judges who were suspended, and very similar procedure. They're all in the same boat. I don't think there's been any, I mean, I might be wrong, but all I know is that it's only been a suspension. I don't know if there's been anything else.
Okay, let me read for you what Basita Michael posted on
Yes.
Twitter. She said,
Yes.
any legal suspension or investigation of the Auditor General must follow the following procedure as set out in the Constitution. 1, the Judicial and Legal Service Commission must represent to the President that the question of removing the Auditor General ought to be investigated. 2, thereafter, the President, acting in consultation with the JLSC, shall appoint a tribunal consisting of 3 members. 3, the tribunal must present its findings to the President and recommend to the President whether the AG ought to be removed from office. 4, after the question of her removal has been referred to the tribunal as set up by the Constitution, then and only then may the President suspend the Auditor General from performing the functions of her office, and such suspension shall cease to have effect if the tribunal recommends to the President that the Auditor General ought not to be removed from office. And she concluded by saying, therefore, any suspension outside the confines of the above provisions of the Constitution is in breach of the Constitution, and any tribunal set up by the AG is illegal.
I don't know. I doubt whether she's right. I think you should have invited her. You see, I know Basita very well, very clever lawyer. I taught her at law school, although now I think she's now on her own. I don't think there's been anything wrong. Whether the President suspends her now, or suspend them now, or suspend them about the time when the tribunal is being set up, the due process is now commencing. If they had commenced with the tribunal, I would have taken issue of it. But the first step is to suspend, because so that will give the tribunal time to start, and nobody will be able to interfere with the tribunal. It will have a clean slate. Well, she's saying that the tribunal should start, and after it's been convened, then you have the suspension. Possibly, but I don't know whether any harm has been done. I think it's still all part of due process. That's the way I see it.
There is this other argument about procedures, about who should write a letter to the Chief Justice, whether it's the Attorney General who is here around, or whether it's the Deputy Minister of Justice. For former Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Joseph Fitzgerald Kamara says it should have been the Attorney General who should write to the Chief Justice asking for the tribunal.
I don't think there is any such provision in the Constitution.
Okay.
There is no such provision. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Kamara is wrong with respect to him.
We're bringing you several views this morning
Exactly.
from people.
No, that's fine, but I don't see that in the Constitution.
Okay, now
That's what I'm
Honorable
saying.
Kande Kole-Yumkela posted this on Twitter. He says, I have learnt about the unprecedented action by the government to suspend the Auditor General, Mrs. Layate Lopez, and her deputy in charge of specialized audit, Tamba Momo, indefinitely. The Auditor General reports to Parliament and not to the presidency. This unprecedented and unfortunate decision is tantamount to an attempt to silence her and interfere with her independence a few days before the release of the 2020 audit report. It is another nail in the coffin of accountability and democracy. So he is saying the Auditor General reports to Parliament, not the presidency.
But you see, I mean, they say fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I know Mr. Nkela very well. Let him read the provision. The point is that at the end of the day, the institution that takes the decision is Parliament. It's not the president. Because when you look at it, so long as the process has been completed, at the end of the day, after the recommendation has been made by the tribunal, whatever the president has to do has to go to Parliament. There must be a 3/4 majority in Parliament before whatever action will take place. So I'm sorry, Mr. Nkela is my friend, but he's not right. This is not a matter of reporting straight to Parliament. Why don't our colleagues stick to what they know well? Some of us have been in this
But even lawyers are disagreeing, Gabbidon.
well, fine, call them.
So what I'm asking...
Can we disagree on the Constitution?
Are you surprised? Are you surprised at this seeming disagreement or
yes,
interpretation?
I'm surprised because some of them are looking at it from a political angle.
Okay.
That's why I'm surprised. If I had 3 or 4 lawyers, I don't mind, I'll take them up. Oh yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
All I'm saying is what Mr. Nkela says is right.
No,
but
not specifically on Dr. Kande Yumkela.
Yeah.
PB has quoted what Pasita Michael said, and
I don't agree with that. The point is, I think let them come here and air their views. Okay. Because that's a newspaper. Trial by newspaper, I'm afraid. I'm against. Don't be a coward. Come and let people hear you. I don't agree with Basita. That's my view. I don't agree.
Okay.
So oftentimes...
Because as far as I'm concerned, all the president has done is to suspend, which is the first part of this process. The first part is suspend. After that, you convene the tribunal. Then the tribunal will investigate. After the tribunal has investigated, they will make their findings and the facts to the president. And even after that, the president cannot take any decision. He probably would have known what the tribunal says. Whatever he has to do has to go back to Parliament. That's what I'm saying. They might all be saying more or less, all might be saying the same thing, that is to make sure that there is due process. It's a matter of the form it takes. As far as I'm saying, if the president has done something, I would say so.
Okay.
I'm not scared of saying anything which is right or wrong. All I'm saying is...
That is why we invited you.
Well, yes, all I'm saying is...
not scared to
yeah,
say
because,
it.
no, I have nothing to lose again. At my age, what am I scared of? I've been president of the Bar Association. I've had all these positions before.
We'll come back to you, Lord.
No, my point is, it is not the president who has the final word.
Okay.
The final word rests with Parliament. That's the point.
Quickly,
So the contention has been it shouldn't be the president to have the first word as well. Not just the final word, but the first word, issuing a letter from the office of the president to the Auditor General.
Who should have the first word? No, let them tell me who should have the first word. The suspension can only be done by the president.
Okay, let's move to Keketoma quickly.
No, let's don't get confused here, please, with respect. I want to tell the moderator, I respect you, I'm not trying to interfere. But let's get the process properly. That is, who should have, let's go for who should have the first word. No, let's start off with that. Who should set the ball rolling?
It's your colleagues. It's not actually PB who is challenging you. It's your colleagues who are challenging what you're saying.
But they're not challenging me.
No, you are challenging
I don't work for the government.
And we are
challenging their opinion.
It's
about the opinions.
No, my opinion
we
is...
We read to you their posts on social media.
That's fine. My own position is simple. The first step should be the suspension. And the only person who can take that suspension, who can do it, is the president. That's all I'm saying.
And due process has been followed.
They've started with due process, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yusuf Keketoma, Sandi, why is the Auditor General and one of our deputies suspended?
I think it's important before we get there to put into context what are the issues. And I'm very happy that obviously you have Lawyer Gabbidon here who has got enormous experience in the law. So I think he has addressed the issues by the law. Firstly, when we came to office, we met Sierra Leone on the fight against corruption and for accountability. When the MCC scored us 49%, 3 years down the line, the recent scorecard that came, we have 83%, which means for the very first time, we are above countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Kenya, and loads of it. It means that President, as the guardian of the constitutional fountain of honor, because of his commitment to accountability and transparency, he would not do anything or take any decision that will reverse this process. That's one. Secondly, the audit service alone is a public institution led by public officials. Whilst we recognize that in the exercise of their functions and their duties, they should not be subjected to any control by any personal authority, when allegations are being lodged, are being made, I think the president has the responsibility to use the processes spelled out in the Constitution for those allegations to be inquired into. And I think that is the important thing. It's because at the end of the day, what we need, you and I, what we need is to have audit service as an institution, which obviously is very credible, is above board, is also above allegations which have been made. And even for the Auditor General and a deputy as well, I think it's both proper if allegations come forward, they have an opportunity for them to defend themselves or for them to respond to those allegations. And I think the Constitution makes provisions for that.
But there is a board, one could imagine, you know, of the commission. One could imagine with the due process, if there are complaints, the Auditor General needs to understand what are these complaints, what she's done or what the deputy has done. And if the board cannot handle it, then it escalates to the president. But the auditor is saying she doesn't even know what she's done. She's been told that she should go on suspension and wait for a tribunal.
So that is why we have a process for the tribunal. So in fact,
let's agree on following that process first.
So you cannot agree to follow a process which is laid down in law. There is nothing in law. There is nothing in law to tell me or to say here, as Gabbidon has said, that is a process that should be followed. What we have done is let's give an opportunity.
Common sense or say common practice. Well, is it not good that if people are making complaints about me, I need to understand that they're making complaints about me and I'm being suspended for a certain reason, rather than just send me and not telling me why I'm being suspended?
Of course you will be told. Like I said to you, there is nothing laid down in the law on what you have done which is wrong. Of course, what happened was a letter was written to the chair of the board, and the chair of the board indicating that these allegations obviously have been lodged, and therefore the process is that by section 137, subsection 6, she will go on suspension. But before even that, when these allegations came forward, the president, by section 53, subsection 1, because in fact I understand the former Attorney General was saying the Deputy Minister of Justice does not have that power. Section 53, subsection 1 clearly spells out that president can exercise his executive authority either directly or through cabinet ministers, deputy ministers, or other public officials subordinate to him. It's clear in the Constitution.
So is this clearly the use of executive power?
No, what we are saying is not being used by executive power. What I have been mentioned was to address one of the issues you raised, which the former Attorney General said the deputy minister did not have the power. So
the board as well as the power and responsibility to investigate within the commission if there are issues.
Yes. So the facts are that the Constitution provides for what should happen. So in as much as the body have their own oversight function, it's also that what the Constitution says is that obviously if an inquiry is to be made, what the president has done is to make sure that that process is followed by the Constitution.
But Yusuf, it's clear the legal people, Lawyer Gabbidon has clearly stated that due process has been followed and it's in the law. But common practice is what I'm asking about here. Say there is a board. One could imagine if there are complaints about against the Auditor General and a deputy, it goes through the board can handle it. If they can't, then they might send it to the office of the president. Or how do people complain to the president? Do they go just to the president and complain without going through the system that has been established within the commission?
So, with respect, Lambrana, common practice is not the law. What the law stipulates, the law stipulates for a process to be followed. And because of the importance of the office of the Auditor General and the Deputy Auditor General, it's important that whatever we are doing, we do not subject to common practice, we subject to the law. And what the law says that if an inquiry is to be made, a tribunal should be set up, and when that tribunal is being set up, they look into the fact, and then the other processes follow. So that is what we have done.
Keketoma, how well informed is the president's decision on this matter, as in supply of evidence to the president before this action? In essence, is the president liable to making a mistake? Well,
in fact, this is not about the president. This is about making sure that you have a process which obviously is fair and is credible. And that is why, through the Constitution, they are going to set up a tribunal. Because at the end of the day, the Audit Service Alone is a very important institution. And therefore, when those allegations are made, it's important that the Auditor General also has a fair hearing. She has an opportunity to respond to those allegations, and the facts are inquired into independently by people, as in the Constitution, who have the experience and people who are qualified or have held office as Justice of the Supreme Court. So that's the important thing.
I ask you this, Keketoma, because many Sierra Leoneans, well, we can't put a statistic on that. Some Sierra Leoneans are confused. Taking a few steps back to 2018, the Government Transition Team report, the GTT report, was, a lot of people said it's witch hunt against the previous administration. But in justification of the report, the defense was, it's strongly premised on the Auditor General's previous reports. Back then, I remember that the Auditor General and her team were hailed by the now SLPP government for their work in the previous Auditor General's reports, which again formed a strong base for the GTT report. So fast forward to where we are right now. What changed? How did things drastically change? It's confusing.
The fact is, since we came to office, in addition to what you've said, for the past 3 years, what we've done is that when we came the Audit Service Alone, just on budgetary allocation, the past government in 2017 used to give them about 27 billion. When we came, because we believe in the work that the audit service does as a public institution, we have increased that as of 2021 to 53 billion. But doesn't only stop that. Last year, when they had the report for 2019, what did we do this year? We held a meeting at the Ministry of Finance, which was co-chaired by the Financial Secretary and Secretary of the Cabinet. We called all the MDs for them to give us an implementation strategy for the recommendations. What did we do? We put together a report on how our government intends to implement all the recommendations from the audit report. And we submitted that to the Auditor General for a validation. But over and beyond that, even as a government, as I speak to you now, we are now committed to enshrine into law sanctions for people who don't comply to audit recommendations. I have said all of this because we believe that the Audit Service Alone is an institution which obviously is a vanguard for accountability and transparency. But as you go along, where allegations have been made.
What are the allegations?
Okay. So now, because it's a process that obviously has been triggered by law, Francis Gabbidon is here, it is not proper, it is prejudicial for us to obviously come, because I know many people have been saying, oh, what are the allegations, what are these, but we also have a responsibility to make sure. So we have a balancing act. Do we make sure that we subject a process to rumors and speculation, or do we ensure we give a fair and non-prejudicial hearing?
You're saying so much to us this morning, but you're not directly answering the questions.
No, I am answering the question. So it's a question of whether we are going to give a fair hearing, have a tribunal and follow the process.
No, that's not the
and
question
those
we
allegations,
asked.
no,
Lamana was asking about what are the allegations,
so
not the tribunal itself.
Okay.
What are the allegations?
So if you are listening to me, Fibian, I first said to Lamgana, these allegations, we're not going to comment on them because by law, it is prejudicial to the tribunal. And even the rights to access...
I really don't understand. I really don't understand.
Okay.
How can't the public understand that a public officer is being suspended for investigation and the public cannot understand
what she's investigating
what she did?
Yes. The reason because the moment those allegations, you subject them, okay, or you comment on them, or you make them publicly discussed, they become prejudicial to the outcome of the tribunal. But let me also follow you. That's why I said I am here with the law. If you go to the Right to Access Information Act, 2013, Section 18, and I read for you, the duty to disclose information shall not apply if or to the extent that compliance with Section 2 would or could reasonably be expected to cause serious prejudice to A, the investigation and detection of crime, B, the apprehension and protection of and prosecution of offenders, or C, matters that are sub judice. So these are matters that are sub judice because they are going to be before a tribunal. And therefore, by law, we are not permitted to comment on these matters.
Agreeing with you on that, Yusuf. We're not asking you what are the evidences held against them. What we're asking is, what are they investigated for? Is it misappropriation of the funds that were allocated to the institution for running costs, or is it the new, because again we've learned that the 2020 Auditor General's report was just few days or weeks from being released before the suspension. Is it the content of that 2020 Auditor General's report, which I am aware must have circulated to the government because they send out these things before it's been made public? Is it the content of the 2020 Auditor General's report that she's being investigated for, or is it misappropriation of the funds allocated to the institution? What is it exactly?
Okay, so let me answer your question directly.
Because remember,
so
let me land on that. So remember, the Auditor General, the President, and all of you put together work for the people of Sierra Leone. Therefore, you are answerable to the people of Sierra Leone. 7 million population ought to know what is going on, what's the investigation process about, so that way we begin to use our senses to put our thoughts together. And yes, during the tribunal, evidences can come forward. We're not asking for evidences, we're asking to know what's the direction of the investigation. Is it too much?
It's not too much. I keep answering your question. You probably don't seem to understand what I'm saying.
So is it about 2020 Auditor General's report or about misappropriation of funds?
So let me answer your question. There are allegations of misconduct and lack of professional practice. Those are what generally she's going to be inquired into by the tribunal. What I would not do, so in as much as we have a duty, that's why I quoted for you the right to access information, which gives us duty to inform the public about what is happening. It is this same law that stipulates in Section 18 that where that information will cause serious prejudice on the matter of the subjudicial, we should not disclose this information. The point I am making is that the fact that I am here, you subjecting me to questioning, I'm responding to you. It means we respect the people of Sierra Leone, we respect the public, and we believe that at the end of the day, what we all need, Fibian, Lambanale, Gabbidon, myself, the president, what we all need is to have a audit institution which is very credible, which is above allegations, and have people who lead those that particular public institution, people who, when allegations have been made, they have an opportunity for them to respond to it, and it's been inquired to it by a tribunal. I think that's the important thing.
Keketoma, is this about the content of the report Phoebe mentioned? Is it about what it entails? that if these complaints have been coming, why not suspend the Auditor General and our deputy before now? Why wait just weeks to the release of the report? Is it about the government is concerned or worried about the content of it?
We are not worried. I mean, why can you be worried if?
But if these complaints have been coming in, why not take this action before now?
No, but you don't. So the timing of when you suspend somebody will depend on who is making the suspension. What I will say to you very authoritatively, it has nothing to do with audit reports, any rumors or speculations. I think it's just politics, and that is why the reason I'm here to make sure that these are processes that we should not subject to rumors.
But isn't the timing also a concern, especially when she's been there supervising this work that should be released in December? It's not too long. How can you just remove her and a deputy who've been doing this work? Well, they're not in picture of what is happening again.
Well, everybody can raise concern about anything. That is their right. What we are clear about, there are two things. Firstly, are there allegations being made of misconduct which obviously warrants for them to be inquired into? Yes. Have we followed the law? Yes. Because the reason is that...
Are you not concerned about the timing?
No, I'm not concerned about the timing.
I just gave you an example.
Yeah, but
this is the Auditor General who's supervised the institution. They've done a report that is to be released soon. And she's out of the picture. She's not there. And the deputy is not there again. And who knows how the content will be.
But if allegations are made, if allegations are made,
but according to,
these are allegations.
According to a statement, according to you, these are complaints that have been coming in. Why wait until few weeks or so to the release of the report and suspend the Auditor General who've supervised this work since January to this time and about to release the document?
But that's what I'm saying to you. If allegations have been made and they reach a particular threshold where obviously we think that is important because of the credibility of the institution, that those allegations should be inquired into by a tribunal, I think the proper and right thing for us to do is to make sure that they are inquired into.
So the government could not allow the Auditor General to release this report and afterwards subdue her to a tribunal and investigation? Are you concerned? Is a suspension connected to the content of the report that is about to be released?
No. A suspension has nothing to do with report. Like I said to you, there have been allegations which are made, and those allegations that have reached a threshold where it's believed, obviously, that because of the allegations, the seriousness of them, it's important that they should be inquired into. What the president has done is to follow the law.
Keketoma, quickly, Phoebe, before you comment, how could we disassociate or disconnect, the release of the report few weeks from now to the suspension of the Auditor General?
Because as far as I'm concerned, you don't know what is in the report. So for you to even connect the report to a suspension, as far as I'm concerned, I think probably it's just a presupposition. You are just making a hypothetical statement because you don't know what is in the report. So therefore, you don't have any reason to connect a report to a suspension.
The government is saying there are allegations about, improper conduct or so, and here is someone who supervised the work about to release it on the government, how the government spent their money and all. Then she's suspended away from it. How can we understand whether the content of the reports will not change when someone else that has been appointed by the president to act will be releasing this report?
So let me paint the picture for you. It's what he's asking. Let me paint a picture for you on that, of the word out in the streets. First of all, we're dealing with an era of fake news, a lot. And unavailability of factual information from the right authorities also creates room for those who spread fake news to thrive, because the sources where the public should confirm the information is not forthcoming. So now what out in the street is that the 2020 Auditor General's report is very damning to the government. And so because the government has had wind of this, the government is trying to prevent the report from being released, or if it's going to be released, prevent certain content. So she's suspended so some editing can go on behind the scenes during her absence before the report. Now, there are people continuing to spread this fake news.
I will say to you that is complete nonsense in the first place. And secondly, like I said to you, except if you guys know what's the content of the report, because I don't know what's the content of the report. So which basically means that the suspension has nothing to do with the report. We cannot
but government must have known, like Phoebe said, some of the findings will be sent to government. So they must, you work at State House,
yes,
I'm sure.
So the way the audit process works is that public institutions have been audited. When they get audited, they send to them what those auditing are about.
Exactly.
And then they make statements or allegations in those audits, and then they respond to it. Once they respond to it, it's the responsibility now for that report.
Which means you know what is in the report.
I don't know what is in the report.
With that process, you must have known what it entails.
Public institutions, so I want us to be clear, public institutions which have been audited would know what they have been audited about, and then they would have at that point,
including the office of the president,
would have replied. Of course.
So that is what I'm saying.
No, the point I am making is that at the end of the day, we cannot subject even audit reports to speculation and rumors, because what it does, it undermines a credible process. Because now you are talking about leaking information here and there. So the question is, who is leaking information? How did they get to
is it about are you justifying the accusation of the Auditor General leaking information to people?
No. She said to me, words are out in the streets. So I'm just saying, those words which are out in the streets, these are complete nonsense, because either they are rumors, they are speculations. What we are not going to do as a responsible government, is to subject an audit process to speculations or rumors.
Okay.
But B, where those allegations are made, we follow due process.
Phoebe,
that's why I'm very happy to have Lawyer Gabbidon here, who has made clear.
Now we have on the telephone line Lawyer Rashid Dumbuya joining us via telephone. Good morning, Rashid. Thanks for joining us. Can you hear me? Rashid, can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, whilst we wait for Lawyer Rashid, let me read these messages quickly. They are from Lawyer Joseph Fitzgerald Kamara, who is watching us. He says the first step, complaint forwarded to the JLSC, which will then examine the question as if the Auditor General ought to be investigated. If they do find a tribunal is set up, then only then can a suspension be invoked by the President. Secondly, he said the letter from the President was directed to the Attorney General. The current Deputy Minister of Justice is not qualified to act or perform as AG. Finally, he says the particulars of allegations must be made known consistent with rules of natural justice. I'll come to you, Lawyer Gabbidon. Those are comments from Joseph Fitzgerald. Let's try Lawyer Rashid again. Hello, Lawyer Rashid.
Yes, I'm getting you loud and clear.
Hello.
I'm getting you loud and clear.
Hello.
Lamgana.
Okay, let's go to you, Lawyer Gabbidon. Yes, I'm asking. I just read. Can I read again?
I'm getting
okay,
you.
So it says. So it says the first step, complaint forwarded to the JLSC, which will then examine the question as if the Auditor General ought to be investigated. If they do, a tribunal is set up. Then and only then can a suspension be invoked by the President. That is from JFK.
Well, I don't know about the first set of facts. Probably he knows better than I. Whether, in fact, information was given to the GLC, I don't know about that. What I commented on was the steps that should be taken in such a situation. If, in fact, the GLC or whatever committee has got facts which suggest that an inquiry should be held, well, I don't know whether the President, I'm not speaking for, I'm going according to what you see, let us make one thing clear. People are confusing politics with the law because of the position she holds. And I'm one of those who, in the first instance, remember when the financial sector was out, I came out against the financial sector. But in this situation, I am looking at the legal process. I'm not looking at the law. Okay. I mean, I'm not looking at the politics of it. I'm looking at the law. Let us say you have now allegations of XYZ against the Auditor General. The first thing the President should do, as far as I'm concerned, is to suspend her and call for a tribunal to investigate whether, in fact, those allegations are true or false. Okay. But what is happening now is people are commenting without even any due process, because they're going on social media. let them allow the process to take its course.
Finally, Lawyer Gabbidon,
Yes.
with your
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I understand.
Let them allow the due process to take...
With your experience around,
Yes.
are you also concerned about the politics of what is happening?
Well, I'm not worried about the politics.
Do you have an opinion around that?
No. I have no opinion on the politics. The only thing I'm worried about is when we're handling situations that involve people like the Auditor General, we should follow due process and make sure we do things right.
Okay.
Because it could have serious local and international repercussions.
Thank you very much.
That's all I'm saying. That is the legal process must be complied
Thank you very much. Keketoma, quickly, the different organizations that have issued press releases have called up for a swift, investigation, the setting up of the tribunal, as well as making public those who are involved in it. How soon will this happen?
Obviously, that will be communicated to the public. There is a process. The process was triggered by a letter that was sent to the Judicial Legal Service Commission. And that process is a process we want to make sure that it's above board, it's credible. But the most important thing is to make sure when allegations are made, we have a tribunal, which obviously is fair, and the Auditor General and a deputy, they are given an opportunity for them to respond to those allegations. Because at the end of the day, for me, like Lawyer Gabbidon said, I'm not here for the politics. I'm here for the process and the law, but also good governance. Because whatever happens to us, the audit service is the public institutions. People who lead are public officials. And therefore, it is right and proper for the president, when allegations are made, they'll be looked into. Just last thing I want to comment on, and it's just with respect to the former learned Attorney General Joseph Kamara. I also want to avert our mind to go to section 53, subsection 1, and I'll read. Subject to the provisions of this constitution, the executive power of Sierra Leone shall vest in the president and may be exercised by him directly or through members of the cabinet, ministers, deputy ministers, or public officers subordinate to him. So therefore, the letter that was written by the Deputy Minister of Justice is right and proper and is within the law.
And finally, Keketoma, how would this affect the 2020 Auditor General's report release?
It would affect it in no way, because that is a process which is different from an investigation that will be, inquiry which will be going on. What we have to do is to make sure we don't politicize things. Audit service by law and by the constitution, they have a mandate on what they have to audit, when to audit, and at which time to present that audit report to Parliament. That process is completely different from a process that we are now on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yusuf Keketoma Sandi, Press Secretary and Presidential Spokesman, and Lawyer Francis Gabbidon. Thanks for giving the legal perspective and explanation of this. This is a discussion that will continue. Definitely we'll have other people to give their opinions and their positions on this. We said earlier that it's been a week of press releases. A lot of press.
We only stopped at the beginning.
Thank you
I
very
wish
much.
we'd gone further than this in terms of...
Yeah, which is why we would continue the conversation in subsequent editions.
Yeah, I think we should.
It would be a fire brigade approach. We assure you that. Well, then I'll join our sports correspondent, Ransford McLean, who is now set in Studio 2 with some sports updates. Good morning, Ransford.
Good morning, Lamana, and good morning to you, Phoebe, for joining me. Now in sport, following the Sierra Leone Football Association press statement confirming that Samuel Kwekubiku, a Ghanaian midfielder who plays for FC Wansin in the Sierra Leone Premier League, will represent Sierra Leone in the AFCON tournament next year in Cameroon. Sierra Leone striker who plays for Helsinki in the Finnish league, Keketoma, has objected to that decision in an open letter he wrote. Kamara stated that Samuel Kwekubiku should not let anyone manipulate his mind on his decision and show that he still has time to represent his country of origin. Now into the Sierra Leone Premier League, 2 matches played yesterday in Freetown. Mount Red Slipher continued a very good run so far. They defeated Eastern Tigers 2-1 at the Bremer Tuga Mini Stadium, east part of Freetown. The Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces won against anti-drug striker 2-0 at the Shaka Stevens Stadium. So far, and finally in tennis, 2 of Sierra Leone male under 14 tennis players have departed Freetown for this year's International Tennis Federation and the Confederation of Africa Tennis Africa Junior Championship in Tunisia that will commence on the 16th to the 21st of this month. President of the Sierra Leone Tennis Association, Kelvin Ezekiel Kelly, says The tournament is important for the players and sure that they will win medals to secure qualification spots. Let's take that.
Well, I just believe that our players will do well. And in terms of the support, it comes from the executive, the coaches, and tennis lovers. We're still waiting to get support from above, meaning the government, but so far, no support yet. But we believe that after football, they will consider other disciplines, especially tennis, because we're doing very well. Yes, I mean, tennis, as I said, we've been doing very, very well. Our under-12 players have just come back as runners-up in Western Central Africa. They've also qualified to go and represent the West and Central Africa in the Africa Junior Championships. Now we have the under-14 players also going. So it means we are really achieving goals. And this is time that the authorities, the corporate bodies, and the government should start looking at tennis as one of the flag bearers of success in Sierra Leone.
We want to prepare for this agency where they take place. We want to prepare for this agency where they take place, and also me and my teammates go hopefully they go take the medal and win the trophy. We train for the previous, let me say the previous weeks, and the training be look somehow nice, be nice. The training be nice, and the coaches.
Sports, and back to you, Lamana and Phoebe.
Well, thank you very much there, Lansford McLean, for the sports update. And this is what would end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Our quote for today says, all citizens, regardless of their gender, must be treated equally in all respects under the law. Discriminatory laws will hinder growth and national development. That's an apt quote that comes from Lara Taylor-Pierce, a Sierra Leone chartered certified accountant and now suspended Auditor General of Audit Service Sierra Leone. Thanks
to our sponsor, Commercial Bank, for their support. Thanks to our guests that have joined us this morning. Continue to stay with AYV throughout the day as we have other exciting programs coming up. Till we meet tomorrow with more interesting issues on Wake Up Sierra Leone. We have been your presenters. I am Amadou Lamwanaba.
And I am Phoebe Nswil, wishing you a lovely day and a productive week.